So anyway, so I've got all these really cool ideas. I want to run Tomb of Annihilation. I want to run all the adventures from Tales of the Yawning Portal. And I want to do Horror on the Orient Express, updated to 7th edition of Call of Cthulhu. And also, I want a pony.
I don't know. I mean, getting the other people to play Call of Cthulhu?
All right.
Hello, we are Geekery. I am InkBlitz.
I am the Gneech.
And this time, we're talking
This
about
episode?
our 2021 gaming goals. I'm not talking about what we're expecting out of gaming for, 2021 or what we're expecting out of D&D for 2021. We're expecting what we want to get out of gaming. Us, specifically.
Yep. Yeah, I saw a lot of videos about what I want to see from WotC this coming year, or what I want to see from the Dungeons & Dragons brand this year, and I'm like, I want to talk about what I want to do.
I mean, D&D and gaming will do its thing, and it will progress as always, and everyone will be disappointed. So,
well, some people think it's great.
Do.
Some people think it'll be disappointed. Yep.
I mean,
so yeah,
that's a good way to know you compromised well. No one's happy.
Maybe. All right. But anyway, so these are our 2021 gaming goals and sort of what we think about the upcoming up. So I've got a few basics. I want to finish running my Tomb of Annihilation game.
I would like to get back to that one.
Yeah. And that one is actually going to be a lot shorter than Storm King's Thunder was. I think you guys are about a third of the way through it already. So it doesn't have the great big sandboxy stuff in the middle like Storm King's Thunder did.
Well, it depends on how much we actually meander through the jungle and how much we get lost from here on out.
Yeah.
So are we going to be less lost or more lost?
Well, as soon as you hit 5th level, somebody's going to memorize Leomund's tiny hut, and then you're going to get long rests all over the place. So that's going to take a lot of.
It's gonna make it a lot easier. It's gonna take out a lot of the difficulty of Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah, but that's okay because the later stuff, especially, there's a big difficulty bump. So I don't want to be messing with you guys, not having rest and fighting ridiculously horrible things. But after that, I want to return to our group that we went through Storm King's Thunder with, and I would like to get those characters up to 20th level. I have some ideas for where to take those guys, but I want to start exploring some of the aspects of traditional high-level play. Lee's character is the first ever high priest of Strongmouse, and so he has to set up a whole church. And
how's he going to do that? Are you going to be able to convince him to step up and do that?
I don't know, but Surfy's character is on track to become a god. So we've got all kinds of interesting things going on.
Who knows what Swifty's going to end up as? I have no idea.
Yeah,
I am excited for that one, really, because I've never played high level content before, and I know you've never really played it before. So
yeah, not really. No. My highest level thing that I have attempted was a sequel to Red Hand of Doom, and that got up to like 12th or 13th level in 3rd edition. And at that point, well, actually, we had switched over to Pathfinder by that point. But at 12th level, 3rd edition or Pathfinder, 1st edition Pathfinder especially, just became unwieldy. It was impossible to run a combat without it taking all night.
Yeah.
So we ended up with sessions where either they were doing anything to avoid combat just so they could get somewhere, or, okay, roll for initiative and we'll be here till 11. So,
I don't miss those days.
Yeah, I really
Pathfinder. I really don't. I thought I would, but I don't.
But anyway, what else? So I have this Thor Ragnarok / Spelljammer idea that's been booting around in my head for a while. My basic idea there is start at 10th level because superheroes,
right?
And and you guys probably have access to a spaceship, or you're bouncing around out in the multiverse, and
Or
that
well
is
on our way
normal.
to getting a spaceship.
Yeah, and that is normal for you guys. Where for regular D&D characters, going off on planar adventures is weird and exotic. And so my idea is, we'll have characters who that's normal for them, and see what kind of shenanigans we can come up
That sounds like I mean that sounds like a lot of fun, and I know that my something I've always wanted to be a part of was like a treasure planet sort of
with.
setting, and that's very similar to Spelljammer, except that it's not so much spells as it's more technology that's gone super high tech steampunk.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So similar vein.
I probably won't be as explicit as, actual galleons in space. I'll
But
probably have.
aliens in space.
I know that doesn't make sense. I mean,
I
the,
love
the
it.
closest the
So
closest I ever
bizarre.
saw to a thing like that made sense was actually Cowboy Bebop, where the whole premise was that their ship could land in the water or land on a platform. It was sort of the spaceship equivalent of a Grumman Goose, and that I could get into, but it wasn't like it was a boat flying through space. It was a spaceship that could land in water. So I would also want to like play around with maybe doing some one shots or doing some stuff in other systems. I used to run lots more different stuff. I've pretty much run exclusively D&Ds, especially since 5e came out. But I used to do Hero System. I've talked about a lot. I used to do Savage Worlds, which is kind of a 5e-ified version of the Hero System. And I've run like Call of Cthulhu and Teenagers from Outer Space and Ghostbusters and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I miss doing things outside the normal. So I'd like to get some more of those back in. And like Plotline has been learning sort of how to game and how to DM, and I would like to get him broaden his horizons a little. I know he plays the My Little Pony license game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen him talk about that a bit.
yeah, and from what I've seen of that, it's kind of like Savage Worlds. So, in terms of mechanics, not in terms of flavor. But
This is something that I'd like to do as well, because I've most of my experience with tabletop gaming is D&D. I've had some experience with Call of Cthulhu. I've done some Big Eyes Small Mouth.
yeah,
But I
you
want to
mentioned
try and
Cyberpunk
do
at one point, didn't you?
Shadowrun. Yeah,
Shadowrun, yeah.
Done some Shadowrun, but I haven't really played it. I have the books. I've
Okay.
read the books.
Uh,
Never played it. I would like to do. I don't know yet.
hmm.
I don't know. I need to look into what's really out there. I know there's some furry fandom sci-fi game called Hex Event Draconis. Here there
I've
be
seen
dragons.
it, but I've never done anything with it.
I own it, but it's very furries in space, and it's going on to its second edition. So that I think once it goes on to its second edition, I might pick that up and give that a shot.
The other thing that we talked about a little bit that I would like to try is the round robin campaign, and that's something I was thinking of as I don't think the Thor Ragnarok game would work well with that, but when we finish getting Storm King's Thunder up to the 20th and are ready to move on to something else, I was thinking of doing something like that with the D&D game where basically we pass off who is the DM for any given adventure. So I would like set up like a basic, like a world and a startup, and everybody would create a character, including me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I would run an adventure too and hand it off to whoever wanted to be next. And they would run an adventure or two, and they would hand it off. And the only real rule is that you can't run more than 2 adventures in a row, right? And there's sort of a sub rule, more like a guideline, which is you can't like control what people do with your stuff. So if you introduce a villain
Right.
and somebody else takes that villain and uses them in an adventure, they have the right
That's
to
it.
do that,
Yeah.
and you have to go along with it.
Expect
But
everything.
yeah, but you can turn around and do the same thing to them, etc. So it's one of those things where you never know what's coming, and you may if you like try to set up a situation, you may get hoist by your own petard, or it may turn out to be even more exciting than you thought it would be. So
I feel like that would be fun. I mean, it's a lot of. I know a lot of DMs, and myself included, try to create long running storylines that has some. You have this big bad up here that you're planning on using later on, and I know that in Everkeep I have like 3 of them,
yeah,
and maybe one you've never met yet. But if I were to pass that off to someone else, they could use those characters and totally foobar the entire storyline I was going to go with that. But at the same time, it's a good way to learn to a bit more of improv in terms of
yeah,
DM,
yeah,
like in terms of the storyline for a DM, where you don't create this whole interwoven plot or
yeah,
interwoven story. You have to go off of what the last person did.
yeah. It really does become more our game rather than
Yes.
my game,
I
And
like the idea of it. I mean, I feel like
yeah,
it'll be complicated, but I also think it's going to be really fun.
yeah. Well, and the neat thing about it is now that the Plots has gotten so into DMing, and Jamie's talking about DMing again. We have theoretically 4 GMs in our group, maybe even 5 if Surfy gets the bug again. He
Come
used
on,
to run
Surfy.
stuff.
You know you want to.
Yeah. So I mean, we could have a thing where it's almost, there is just the game, right? And who wants to run this week? Oh, I got an idea. I'll do something. Um, so I
I
think
think
that
I'd
could
enjoy
be,
that.
yeah, that could be a great open-ended, just a continuing story instead of an epic that needs to be finished. So
All right.
those are my goals. How about you?
Those are good goals. So my first goal is something that I've been holding off on for a while that I'd love to. I really want to get back to it. Is return to Everkeep, because everyone enjoys it. I enjoy the setting as well. It's just I've been having. I mean, it's been a difficult year for everyone, but for me, I basically had a year long, 6 months, 6 months long writer's block when it comes to everything. So I really want to get back to that, and I really enjoy the characters that everyone has. I know where we stopped off at, and I know where I want to take that from there. And so it's just a matter of getting the motivation into it, getting myself past my current blockages, and push into it, and really, I really want to see where you all go next and what you do with what I send at you. There are several things that you have not caught on to yet. And I'm just waiting for you to catch on to it. And it's going to be so much fun when you do.
Yeah, well, you know already how I feel about all that. I mean, it's my baby Shady in the game, and I've always wanted to play in a piratey sort of a setting, and so I'm ready whenever you whenever you are.
Everkeep has become a bit less piratey and a little bit more, I don't know. Like it's less pirate and more sailing. I would like to bring more pirate-ish sailing stuff into it, but at the same time, it's like I don't I don't know where I'm going with it, and that brings
Well,
me to my next point: is I need to figure out where that story is going next. Because if you all want more piratey adventures, it's like, well, at the same time, I want more intrigue and a little bit more higher end fantasy shoved into here, and I'm not really sure how to do that when we're really leaning towards a more piratey adventure. So it's I just don't know where to take the story next, which is part of the reason why I've been so stuck with getting back into Everkeep. I have the immediate story, like maybe 2 or 3 sessions, and then I get stuck. I'm like, well, have I written myself into a corner again, which I did with the last session, the last campaign that I ran. I wrote myself into a corner. It's like, well,
We could talk for hours about what's piratey and what's intrigue and stuff like that. That might be an interesting episode, but it's probably, would probably pad out this particular episode way too long.
I feel like I need to enrich myself a bit more in pirate lore, or pirate, maybe not so much pirate lore, because pirate lore itself is very depressing.
Yeah, real world pirates did not do well. Even only a few of them ever really did well, but
they didn't have a very long life expectancy.
They really did. But the seminal work on pirates is, of course, Treasure Island. And you really can't go wrong by starting by reading the actual book, Treasure Island, as
I've
opposed
never
to
read the actual book.
Yeah, the actual book is the closest one is the TNT one with Charlton Heston as Long John Silver. That's the closest adaptation of the book. But the actual book itself, there's a lot of stuff that tends to get cut out in movie adaptations because it's either boring or it's sort of extra stuff because it was written as a serial in magazines originally and then made into a book later. But like there's details like Long John Silver was married that are never put into any adaptation and stuff like that. And you get a better sort of picture of like the world that Treasure Island exists in. And if you combine that with something that's with the Assassin's Creed Black Flag game, which is specifically about the end of the golden age of piracy, seen through
I have that game. I have not finished it.
Yeah. It's seen through the Assassin Templar storyline of Assassin's Creed, so there's a lot of stuff in there that's just baloney. But like the historical characters that you meet, Steed, Bonnet, Blackbeard himself, Bartholomew Roberts, these were all real people, and they did a very good job of creating the world that they were really inhabiting. And you could see why piracy went the way it did, both why they took it up, but also
why it fell apart.
Yeah, and why it fell apart. So those are good places to go.
Well, as much as I do like Everkeep and how we've been going, I've also been trying to think of what I want to do next, because there is going to be things after Everkeep, and there will be a point where either I will run out of things to do and I need to just I need to run something else for a little while. Like, we hit the end of Storm King's Thunder, and we're now into Tome of Annihilation, so it's something else away from those characters and that setting ish, and onto something else, which different characters, different tone of setting. I don't know what I want to do next. Like, do I want to like find another campaign to play? See, this world that we've created is enormous, and we will probably never be able to tell the entire story of the world. But it's like, what do I want to do with it? Like, or do I want to go to a different world? I don't know. Or do I want to do a different setting, a different rule book? Like I mentioned, Hexavant Draconis. That would be a fun one to bring up at some point, where maybe we're explorers on Mars, or explorers trying to reach the far reaches of the solar system. Or do I just want to do something more simple? You tossed around the idea before of doing like you create a city, you throw in a bunch of plot hooks and just see where everything goes. Technically, Everkeep kind of did that. I don't feel like I did it successfully. I'd like to try it again at some point.
Well, I mean, Everkeep did also sort of get taken over by Shady's desire to go to sea. So,
that definitely led a big part of where this was going to go, because the way that things had started, it could have gone much differently. It could have gone further into the depths of Everkeep or out of Everkeep itself. But the desire to obtain your own boat and go sailing, that really did shape where this was going, and I like it. I like where that took Everkeep. It's like I want to do something more. If I was going to do something more, I feel like I would do something a little bit more higher fantasy. Maybe I wouldn't say with the elves, but elvish sort of feeling. Very high fantasy, wizards and etc. I don't know. Maybe I'll write a one shot where it's just toying with different setting ideas and just see which sticks. And if it sticks, I'll continue with it, and it'll be like an offshoot of Everkeep. So when I feel like playing Everkeep, I play Everkeep. When I feel like playing something else, I got this one here.
I did one. It was explicitly a Tolkien-style game, but was not set in Middle-earth. So I was trying to create that haunting elvish melodies and the war of light against darkness and all this stuff going on. But the problem is that we talked before in the I think it was in the Fantasy Races game about players want to be the weirdo, right?
Right.
And so I ended up with sort of all elves and no hobbits. The same.
But
the
elves
same,
weren't the weirdos, though. The elves were the normal ones.
Well, in Tolkien, the elves are kind of weirdos. They're mysterious and they're all over the place, but they're always second or third hand characters. The only one you ever really spend any time with are only ones you only ever spend any real time with are Legolas and Elrond. And Legolas is a strong silent type as far as elves go. He barely ever says a word.
He doesn't say anything. He just shoots things.
Yeah, his one sort of big character moment is when the Balrog shows up and he freaks out. That's Legolas's big moment.
That's really it.
Yeah.
He's even calm and stoic during the orcs.
Yeah, most of the time he's just like, oh, there's a thing. I shot it. It's dead. And then the Balrog shows up and he's like, oh my god, it's a Balrog. We're all going to die. And it's like, wow, Legolas freaked out. We're in trouble. This is a book version. In the movie, it's not quite so much. But
no, there's not that much of a freak out there.
Yeah. But the other one, like I say, is Elrond. And he's a quest giver. He's got an exclamation point over his head the whole time. So, you don't really see that much of the elves. You just sort of see the hobbits reacting to the elves more than anything else. And I was trying to get that same kind of elves are otherworldly and mysterious, and
it didn't work out.
Yeah.
When you have a high magic thing, you have to have that mysterious thing, but you can't all be the mysterious thing.
Yeah.
Well, at least one of you needs to be the hobbit, or at least half of you needs to be the hobbits.
Yeah.
I would say no, maybe more like 3/4 needs to be the hobbits and humans, or other races, and then you can maybe have one or two of the really high, mystical, strange creatures.
Weirdly enough, the very earliest versions of D&D handled that best, I think, by making elf and dwarf character classes rather than there being a class and race combo. Mm-hmm. So if you were an elf, you were of the elf class, and you were basically a fighter wizard, because all elves were like this. Yeah. Unless everybody was going to be a member of the elf class, in which case you were gimped on having a straight fighter and having a straight magic user and all that other stuff.
Right.
You had one elf in the party, and that was it.
They were still weird.
Yeah. So, I think if you wanted to create a game like that, you might be well served to have some kind of a cost. Like, everybody gets a feat at startup, and one of the feats is I have a weirdy race, right? And that
is an interesting thought. I like that idea. Where if you're not a weirdy race, like if you're one of the quote unquote stereotypical fantasy races, you get a feat and you can put it anywhere you want. But if you choose a strange race that's not among the original or the normal,
Mm.
you have to put that feat into this race or something related to this race.
Yeah, and mechanically, I mean, that's exactly what D&D does with the variant human is, variant humans have abilities and feat, whereas races have abilities and their racial abilities.
Yeah.
It just sort of highlights it more. Your
I feel like
feat is
I feel like that could be an entire session on its own,
yeah,
an entire episode on its own. But another thing I want to do is, aside from DMs, I want to become a better player because
yeah,
I know you've talked about becoming a better player, and since you've DM'd a lot in the past, you've only recently become really a player. I want to learn to do the same because I have the impression that I'm a good player, but I get the feeling that I'm not really the good player that I should be. Like, I have interesting characters, but for Swiftstorm, the interesting part of her character is that she's a griffin.
hmm
So I want to really learn how to create better personalities in my D&D characters, and maybe create a character journal for each, even if they're not creating a character, creating a journal in character. I want to be able to create a journal for that character for each session, just for myself, because ADHD. I would love to be
yeah,
able to remember everything about the session, but I'll be totally honest with you. Next day, I can't remember most of it. It's just
yeah. Well, I started doing that for my characters, and I had to do it immediately after the session was done, most of the
yeah.
time,
And
which means I go to bed at midnight or 1 after a game. But on
That
the
is
other hand,
Saturday.
yeah, on the other hand, I have the notes in front of me and I just go from that. And going back and looking at it has helped me sort of maintain threads and go back to threads, like following up on there's a bunch of stuff in Everkeep where I've been like, oh yeah, we need to follow up on this. And so I've had Shady, go back to stuff that would have otherwise been lost, and
And I appreciate that. I mean, as a DM, I appreciate people being able to go back to these things that I thought would be forgotten forever. And
yeah,
then another couple sessions in, it's like, oh, someone remembers this?
yep,
That was
yeah,
kind of a throwaway, but I'll take it.
yeah,
Another thing I want to do is I've struggled a lot with my writer's block recently, and it's come up a lot with this one shot holidays campaign that plotline is coming up with, and it's like I can't think of a character. So it's like I want to be able to have a character vault, something which has just a bunch of different characters, different character ideas, just sitting in this vault that I can pick up at any time. Different personalities, different traits that I can just smash together and say, okay, I have a character. I can be ready in an hour.
mm,
I know that people aren't expecting more, and I don't know if I'm out of. I don't know if I'm just not quite comprehending things as well, or if I'm not, if I'm off track. But I feel like I could bring more to the table, and I want to be able to have, the toolkit, character toolkits, character the vault to be able to come to the table with more for my characters and contribute more to the game.
okay. Honestly, once I saw your become a better player item on the agenda, I was like, man, I want to steal that now, but he stole it. So I would also like to become a better
You're
player
welcome.
in
You
the
can take this
upcoming-
too.
Yeah. But I'm not sure where my weak spots are now at this point. I short of like polling the entire group and saying, hey guys, how could I be a better player? I'm not sure. I mean, I have the ongoing thing of wanting to talk a lot and learning, trying to learn when should I be stepping up because other people don't want to, and when should I?
That's a difficult one to really learn because
Yeah.
you don't know, and
Yeah.
especially with online, it's like it's very difficult. It's like, is someone just lagging behind and they're waiting for everyone else to stop talking so they can talk, or are they not stepping up?
Yeah, I mean, how many times have I and Plotline started speaking at exactly the same moment, and we both stop, and then we both start again at the exact same time because we've like tried to defer to the other person and stuff like that. And and in the gaming online episode, we talked about Jamie trying to find a space in the conversation where he could put in his thing, and the entire group has gone off to go somewhere else, and he was like, "But I wasn't finished with this thing," and stuff like that. I think my other thing as a player is also, uh, I think I still need to work on like tempering my expectations.
Mm.
We talked last time about you're a hero but not the hero,
Right.
right? And with Shady especially, she's very big and loud and wants to go do stuff all the time and always has an agenda and is always driving the story forward, which is great as long as everybody else gets to do their thing also.
Right.
Versus Aiko, who was very passive and was like deliberately so. I created Aiko with the idea that she's a schoolgirl and sort of out in the big wide world for the first time, has no idea what to do, and um, I wanted her to be able to contribute, but I also wanted her to not necessarily be the leader.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted her to be able to like speak up and make things happen and stuff like that when it was appropriate. And that never really gelled for me with Aiko, and so that's another thing that I want to learn is sort of uh, when figuring out when something's not actually working and when I'm just like being impatient with
Right.
stuff. I'm very much, I want my characters to succeed at what they're supposed to be good at, and I don't care if they fail at what they're supposed to be bad at. And sometimes I feel like if they're not succeeding at what they're supposed to be good at, I get frustrated quickly. So
Well, I feel like you have to remember also in terms of that, it's when you're failing, it's a character building I hate the term character builds character, but in terms of D&D, it actually does. So when someone fails, that can be a character defining or character encouraging moment, or it could just be hilarity because when things fail is usually when things get silly. It's like if things were to succeed all the time, it would be really boring.
yeah. Yeah, well,
And it's hard to keep that in mind. Especially, I have that problem as well. And mentioning passiveness, I'm also often too passive with Swift because she's supposed to be in your face. She's supposed to be brash and encouraging things forward, but she's not. I'm not having her do that so much because I'm afraid of that failure.
Well, I mean, Swiftstorm has struggled in the past with, oh, this is a great stunt, roll a 1. Oh, this is a cool time, I'll swing my weapon, roll a 1.
Yeah, I mean, there's also that because I feel like I'm getting a little bit like you, where I've been burned by the dice, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't really want to do this because the dice will burn me if I let them.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the thing I think maybe both of us need to work on is letting go of that. I did have on here, like, for thinking about in our upcoming year, why do we do what it is we do? Why are we gaming? What are we getting out of it? And of course, the first big answer is the camaraderie of hanging out with the rest of the group. But there is something special about gaming, about role-playing games versus other stuff, because all of December we've been playing Quiplash and You Don't Know Jack and all these things with the same group of people mostly. But for me at least, it's been great to see everybody. But at the end of the day, I've been like, I wish that had been D&D. Again, this could be a whole episode of why gaming versus why role-playing games. But
Quiplash and Jackbox games are more, to me, they feel a bit more like they are games for the sake of gaming or games for the sake of socializing. They're social games. They're there for you to be social with one another. Whereas in D&D, yeah, there is that social aspect, but they're also more focused, more activates the brain more. So
Yeah.
you're not just there to spitball silly answers, which I usually do in Jackbox, and yet people vote for them anyways.
Well, I mean that's kind of the point. But yeah. Yeah, I mean
But it makes you
there's a
think. It makes you.
deeper.
It's not. There's more to it. It's
Yeah.
a. You are engaging at a deeper level than just party games. Which party games are great. They're fun. They're silly. If you're tired, if you're just
Yeah.
burnt out, they are a great way to blow off steam. D&D, I feel, is a better way to engage your brain, engage your concepts of reality, and to step out of reality for a little while. Because while you are still in a with a social game, so you're still you.
Yeah.
You're still, your life is still going on in the background, and you're just ignoring it. With tabletop and role playing games, you are stepping out of your current role and into something else, and you're being a part of something else, and it gives you the chance to step away from your life in a more full fashion,
Yeah.
and to explore other facets of life
So I think
that you
I think
may not see usually, and then you can come back to your life later on. It's like, well, maybe that wasn't so bad after all.
yeah. Yeah. Well, whatever that ineffable quality is, that going deeper uh thing is something for the upcoming year that I want to dig into more in our games. I want to find whatever that special thing is and bring it out more and more intentionally interact with it. So that's my other goal for 2021 in gaming. So.
I'm all for that. I like it.
So
what do we want to do next time? So we got a couple of subjects on the board here. One I feel keeps coming back up to the board, and this might be something we'll just take up eventually. It's respect at the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you respect yourself, the other people at the table, the DM, and the little things you don't think about when you're playing in a role-playing game.
Yeah. We got a request last time for expanding the written adventure, and that's certainly something that I've done a lot of, especially in Storm King's Thunder. The Storm King's Thunder campaign was approximately 50% Storm King's Thunder and 50% homebrew, and so I have a lot to say about that kind of thing.
Yeah, Everkeep is pretty much. Actually, at this point, it's pretty much mostly homebrew. I'd say about 10%. 10% written adventure. Yeah. And lastly, we've got remixing, respecking, and retiring.
Yeah.
At what point do you remix different characters, different races, different items, different spells, and remix them to something else that you want to toy with?
Yeah. If a character's not working, is it something where you just need to change them up a little, or maybe redo the build or something like that? Or is it something where the character's fundamentally broken and you just have to move on to a new one?
Retire them. Drop the character. They happen.
Yeah. So if you'd like to hear us talk about one of those, or if you have some other topic you want us to talk about, please let us know down in the comments. We absolutely love hearing from anybody and everybody about what we do. And as always, I want to plug my Patreon, because that's how I make my living, even more now than before, because I've moved to a place where I can't really go to a regular job. I'm way out in the sticks, so
support him. He deserves it.
Yeah. And of course,
like and subscribe if you like what we're talking about, or if you want to hear us more.
Yep. And we will be back again sometime in the not too distant future with one of those topics, or one that you've suggested. And thank you for coming. Nighty night.
It's middle of the day.
Whatever. Whatever. I'm going to stop recording now. So.